In Qatar, a United Nations conference convened to tackle Afghanistan's urgent challenges. Special envoys from UN member states and representatives from Afghan civil society gathered to address discussions on humanitarian aid, engagement strategies with the interim government, and the nation's political future. However, despite invitations extended, Taliban officials' notable absence underscored defiance toward Western nations, donors and Afghan women's groups, as they asserted themselves as the sole representatives of Afghanistan, rejecting calls for inclusive dialogue. A report.
In Doha, Qatar, a two-day United Nations conference convened to address Afghanistan's pressing issues. Special envoys from UN member states and representatives from Afghan civil society gathered to discuss humanitarian aid, engagement with the interim government, and the nation's political future. The conference aimed at increasing international engagement with Afghanistan and developing a more coordinated response to the problems afflicting the war-torn nation.
We want Afghanistan in peace, peace with itself and peace with its neighbors, able to assume the commitments and the international obligations of a sovereign state, and at the same time doing so in relation to the international community, the other countries, its neighbors, and in relation to the rights of its own population.
Despite invitations, Taliban officials opted not to attend, sending a clear message of defiance to Western nations, donors, and Afghan women's groups. The Taliban's Ministry of Foreign Affairs declared itself the sole representative of Afghanistan, dismissing the need for inclusive dialogue. In a statement, the Taliban's Ministry of Foreign Affairs said it should be the sole official representative of Afghanistan for talks with the international community, and only then could engage in frank discussions. Inclusion of others would hinder progress. UN Chief Antonio Guterres, addressing the media after the conference, said the de facto authorities did not accept an invitation to the meeting of international envoys to Afghanistan that he convened. Guterres also dismissed claims of UN failure, saying the conditions of the Taliban had placed were unacceptable.
I received a letter with a set of conditions to be present in this meeting that were not acceptable. These conditions, first of all, denied us the right to talk to other representatives of the Afghan society, and demanded a treatment that would, I would say, to a large extent be similar to recognitions.
The Taliban took over Kabul in August 2021 after United States and NATO forces withdrew following 2 decades of war. Since its takeover of Afghanistan in 2021, the Taliban regime has cracked down violently on civil society, women's rights and dissent, as highlighted in a recent UNAMA report detailing over 50 decrees curtailing women's freedoms. According to the report, there has been increase in police harassment in public spaces and further limited women's ability to leave their homes. 57% women in Afghanistan felt unsafe leaving the home without a mahram or male guardian. Risks to their security and their anxiety levels increased whenever a new decree was announced specifically targeting them. International donors have also pulled crucial funding used for development projects, compounding an ongoing economic crisis. Today, no country recognizes the Taliban group as Afghanistan's government, and the UN has said that recognition is almost impossible, while bans on female education and employment remain in place.
There is, in the international community, a perception that inclusivity has not improved, that the situation of women and girls and human rights in general has in fact deteriorated in recent times, and that the problems of the fight against terrorism are not entirely solved. So, to a certain extent, we are in a kind of a situation of the chicken and the egg, which means with the Taliban thinking that the concerns of the international community are not their business, and wanting recognition and integration, and the international community thinking that there is no progress in relation to its main concerns, and so there is no progress also in the questions of recognition and integration.
The biggest point of contention between the international community and the Taliban are the bans imposed on women and girls. Since it retook power, it has ordered women to cover up when leaving home, stopped girls and women from attending high school and university, and banned them from parks, gyms, and public baths. The Taliban insists the bans are a domestic matter and reject criticism as outside interference. As Afghanistan grapples with its future, the standoff between the Taliban's authoritarian rule and calls for human rights and equality continues, leaving the nation's path forward uncertain.